This morning we draw from texts of our Judeo-Christian sources of our Unitarian Universalist faith. In the Christian scripture book of Acts, chapter 9, the story is told of the awakening of a man named Saul. Saul was known to persecute the followers of Jesus because he did not agree with their religion. The story tells us that as Saul traveled the road to Damascus, he was suddenly blinded by a great light. The text says, though his eyes were open, he could see nothing. He was then told to proceed to the city and find a man named Ananias who would restore his sight. At the same time, Ananias had a vision instructing him to find a man named Saul, whom he knew as an enemy of his own faith, and heal his sight. Though he did not want to and argued with God about it, he complied, went to Saul, laid his hands on him, saying, "The Lord has sent me so that you may regain your sight and be filled with the Spirit." The original language of the text says that you may be filled with Ruach. In both Aramaic and Hebrew, the word Ruach means what we call in Unitarian Universalism, spirit of life, breath. The text says, and immediately something like scales fell from Saul's eyes and his sight was restored. In the Hebrew scripture, the book of Genesis, chapter 3, gives us a story of human vision in a different way when first woman was instructed by Yahweh not to partake of the tree of knowledge lest she die. Now the serpent who has been given such a bad reputation for this said, "No, you won't die. God just knows that when you eat of that tree, your eyes will be opened and you will know good and evil." And then she and first man did eat of that fruit, and their eyes were indeed opened, and they could now perceive good and evil. Now let me stop here a minute to explain something. The church fathers claimed that this thing that happened in the Garden of Eden was called original sin. Although neither the concept of original sin nor that phrase, that term, nor that word is used anywhere in Scripture. It was never even thought about until the 2nd century, and then not taught as a tenet of the Catholic Church until the 4th century, when Augustine got a hold of it and began to write about it. My beloveds, the story of Eve's daring to disobey did not introduce original sin into the world, that notion of original sin. Powerful men did that. And the misery wrought of this false teaching has rippled down through human history to this very moment. With the shameless patriarchal disdain for women on widescreen, high-definition cable television this week. When a woman stepped forward and dared to bear witness of sexual violence, to challenge the son of American privilege. Now, before we go any further, I also want to say this. My beloved men, my brothers, my sons, when you hear someone say they wish to dismantle the patriarchy, they are not threatening you. They are threatening the systems of privilege and power under which all of us suffer, including you. I have 3 little brothers. I birthed 2 sons. I have numberless, enlightened, generous, kind, wise, giving men in my chosen family. I have seen firsthand what toxic masculinity does to you. So when we say this must be dismantled, it means all of us. It means me. It means you. The only way we can heal that is together. You see, when Eve ate of that forbidden fruit, she did not sin. She awoke. She awoke. Her eyes were opened, the scripture says. That's not original sin. That is original blessing, in the words of Matthew Fox. Humanity, hear this, humanity did not fall from grace with awakening. We fell into it. We fall into it every time we awaken a little more. Every time we dare to open our eyes and see. In the 2nd century, the theologian Irenaeus said the story of redemption is not about the need for God to become human to eradicate human sin. It is that God needed to become human so humans could become God. God came as human so that humans could become God. And if you reread the Judeo-Christian scriptures, it teaches that. We just got some people over here trying to get us to look at original sin. At their very core, every spiritual practice invites us to dare to see, to risk opening the eyes of our minds and our hearts to what is and what can be. And while we like to set our vision on possibility and that glittering, gleaming hope of reward right out there just beyond our eyesight, while we try to keep our eyes on that, the fact is we can never, ever attain that until we learn to see things right here, right now, as they are. Cannot see things as they can be until we learn to see them as they are. The Buddhist practice calls this Yatha Bhutan Darshanam, to see things as they are, even when it hurts. And we want to look away, and we want to cover our eyes, and we want to flee back into the shadows rather than face what the light reveals. But my dear ones, retreat and refusal only make it worse in the long run. We might temporarily feel some relief to avert our eyes, but here's the thing. What we have seen, we cannot unsee. Once we have seen, we cannot unsee. It is my contention that the depth of the pain and the confusion and the anxiety and the anguish so many of us and our society as a whole are experiencing in this moment is not just the result of seeing things as they are now, in their harsh reality, in high definition in front of us, but our pain is all the deeper for our failure to having dared to see it for too long until now. Ever go to the beach and push a beach ball down under the water? Ever go to a swimming pool and push a pool toy down under the water and you hold it under and you hold it under and you hold it under and you try to push it under and you try to push it under and you try to keep it under and then something happens and you let go? What happens? That's what we're in the middle of right now. The things that we have refused to see for generation upon generation, we are now being given clearly. Because for many of us, it was possible to go along like things were pretty well bound to just keep progressing on a more or less upward progressive arc if we just kept our heads down, and worked hard and did all the right things and whistled louder if fear or doubt raised their heads. That was true for some of us. It was not true for my black and brown-skinned siblings. It was not true for my immigrant siblings. It was not true for my disabled siblings. It was not true for my transgender, nonconforming, and other LGBTQ siblings. This has not been true for anyone living on the margins of the dominant culture that purports peace and plenty, or what we convince ourselves that is. So in this passage of crisis and deconstruction we are living through, it is tempting to believe it's never been worse. I hear it from every quarter, every day. It's never been this bad. How did this happen? And my beloved siblings say, really? It's been this way for us all along. And with much weeping and gnashing of teeth at the state of affairs in these days, I am asked not only to see things as they are, but then am called to account for my complicity in perpetuating the systems that hold people I love outside the purview of prosperity. My colleagues and my friends dare to say, are you willing to give up your own privilege, your own comfort, your own safety for the sake of us whom you say you love? For you see, though I claim my indigenous blood and my queer love, I can walk through the world appearing white and straight. I am not called upon to step aside that others may come forward. And I rarely feel that I am in danger except walking while female. And so, my beloveds, things are not getting worse. They're getting revealed. The veils of deception are falling. The facades of propriety are fading. The illusion of equity and fair play is dissolving. The systems of white privilege and patriarchy that hold our societal scaffolding in place are being shown to be rotten at the base. And never forget that when the American founders, many of whom we claim among our Unitarian ancestors, when they wrote "We the People," they meant the landed aristocracy of wealthy white men. Some of that property was counted as wives and children and enslaved people. When they wrote "All men are created equal," they meant all men, all white men. All the rest of us have to fight for the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness they say was presumed in our very existence, but was not. And because we won some of those rights for some of the people, some of the time, some of us got to go right on oblivious that we were complicit in the very systems that held us up in privilege. We were fish in the water. Fish don't know they're in water. Ask a fish about the water. They say, what water? We're fish in the water when we walk in privilege. We don't know until someone dares to put it in our face and we dare to see. And then once we've encountered that truth, we cannot keep upholding untruth, even inadvertently, without dying a little more deeply every day. Little did I know that when I put forth the title of this service months ago, what the week leading up to this day would deliver us. I'd expected mainly to speak about seeing the possibilities in our future, and they are great. I planned mainly to point out all the opportunities that promise to lead us toward those possibilities if only we could see them and keep our eye on them. Never could I have imagined that we'd be gathering here this morning having witnessed an epic and historic, bald-faced, vicious battle between truth and untruth on 24-hour cable news. Never would I have expected to witness the clear intent of the powerful that the powerless must never challenge the status quo. Never insist that authority be held accountable. Never have the audacity to deny privilege its death grip on liberty and justice in our society. Never allow a woman to demand that her body and her sensibilities and her heart not be a commodity, nor a conquest, nor a plaything to be discarded when no longer of use, and not a footnote in a high school yearbook. Never, ever permit the aggrieved to come before you with the truth on their faces and falling from their mouths begging, please won't you see me? Please won't you see my life? Won't you see me as I am? Is it any wonder that those women, bless their hearts and souls and bodies, who cornered Senator Jeff Flake in an elevator, demanded, look at me when I'm talking to you. See my story. Believe me. I am myself, and I am your mother, and I am your daughters, and I am your sisters. Look at me. Truth is hard. And we want desperately to see it. And we want desperately not to see it. Because then, we know in our deepest selves that once we have borne witness to truth, there is neither turning away nor turning back, only now grappling with what we know and can no longer deny because we have seen it. So now what? How in the name of everything holy could any of this be good? Where is the virtue? Where is the joy? Where is the love? Thank the goddess for some friends who keep posting videos of silly kittens on Facebook to keep us all on the planet. A couple days ago, a colleague of mine, the Reverend Meg Riley of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, posed a question. Helplessness, she said. Helplessness is the worst thing in the world to feel. When we are triggered by current events that remind us of the most helpless times in our lives, how do you get out of that pain? And she invited us to share. Here's what I wrote. I call a gathering of champions in my mind. Any moment, anywhere. People I personally know and have known who have every reason not to be here, but are still here. Who have every right to have given up long ago, but will not. Who would be justified in giving over to despair, but have made hope their way. I close my eyes, and I see them, and I thank them one by one, until I have borrowed enough from their hearts that mine can carry on. There are far braver people than me. And my beloveds, in that gathering of champions, I see you. at us. Here this morning, in spite of it all, to make meaning of our lives, to figure how to move forward, how to have joy, how to have hope, how to have love. Here's what I see. However much it terrifies us. I was asked this week by a seeker, what's the silver lining? Here it is. We are being given an opportunity to see things as they are, unique to our time, inherited from those before us, some of whom did good work, some of whom looked away and carried on. We are being given a chance to see things as they are, to see the mess, to see the pain, and then act to change it. We are being given an opportunity to make restoration. And in making restoration for those who have been harmed by the systems of oppression that benefit most of us, we restored ourselves. We are being given a chance to atone for our complicity in the systems of oppression, dismantle them, break them down, begin to heal, build a new way, the way of love. Many before us have thought the world was over and instead turned to make it live. We just read John Milton. You know what John Milton is most famous for? Paradise Lost. He thought it was over. And here we are. It's our turn. What are we going to do? I want to invite you practice right now with me, calling in a champion, a gathering of champions in your mind and your heart. Who are your champions? Who are those that you know and have known that teach you courage and compassion and the will to keep carrying on a day you feel you can't, but you must? Close your eyes. See them one by one. Look at their faces. Feel their hearts. Hear their words. Thank them one by one by one that you inherit their courage. Take fire and kindness and bravery from their hearts. Place it in your own. Who are they? What do they teach you? What did they survive that you might thrive? I lift my eyes and find in every direction legions of others, picking up the pieces of their lives to rise in solidarity and hope, living out their compassion, gathering their courage, dancing with determination that this world will not be given over to hate and hopelessness as long as they breathe. They dare to see things as they are, that they may see things as they can be. I see people being arrested for the sake of truth in the halls of Congress. I see people rising to say no more. I see people marching and rolling and praying and chanting and singing the way of justice, the way of hope, the way of love. I see people daring to see. I see you. I see you. I see you. And there came suddenly a bright light before Saul, and though his eyes were open, he could not see. His sight could only be restored when he became willing to see truth and trust one he had known as his enemy. Danger. Scales are falling. And we are just beginning.